Do you have laptop?
Yeah. Do you want to use it?
Yeah. That's
It's cool though that they let you guys do it in groups. They didn't let us do single shows in groups.
Yeah, it's very nice.
It's a good perk.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun just to explore the city too. Like,
Yeah.
just to be here. It's awesome. So, I started the video with this is pretty casual.
Sure.
And we have a set of questions,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll just keep it like conversational.
Yeah.
And we'll naturally hit on all the questions we have because they're pretty
Okay.
standard. So, like we said, I'm George, Jake, Will, we're seniors. I'm really happy to be here, so thank you for finding time. Could you provide a little bit of background on yourself and where you are now?
Sure. So graduated McDonogh 01. Was UVA, did the comp school, so finance and management, majored in Spanish as well. Spent 4 years as a strategy consultant working for Kearney. Lived in New York but was never here Monday through Thursday. Had the opportunity to work in Peru for 3 months. And then actually was asked by the firm to work in Africa. They forgot to mention it'd be alone, so I was in Cameroon for 3 months, built a global exchange program for them. Went to business school, swore I would never move back to New York, never do investment banking, so naturally worked for Goldman, doing investment banking, and then started my company now, Carenware, 8 years ago. Had loved ones diagnosed with cancer, told to wear socks in their arms, and just thought, wow, this sucks, there's got to be something better. So started working with nurses and doctors from Hopkins and UVA to try and redesign the tube stock. And while I was doing that, took a step back and realized whenever you go to the hospital, everything's always been focused on function and not on how it looks or how it makes you feel. And so really just wanted to build a brand in the healthcare space.
Cool. That's possible. It's really cool.
So kind of going back to your time at McDonogh, do you have any specific favorite memories or highlights as a student?
Yeah, I mean, I think the teachers are pretty incredible. And you realize that after, like the fact that if I still see them now, and I went to McDonogh all 12 years, so like when I see them now, they still know who I am and remember me, which is kind of nuts when you think about it. Like Mrs. Wonder just wished me happy birthday.
She did computer.
She, and for us, was math.
Yeah. Our previous interviewer talked about her when he was
Oh, really?
active. Yeah. That's
The Mrs. Jurgen, now Mrs. Howell, is like in the lower school. She was my second grade teacher, and like still super close with her. It's really cool, just like the bonds you create with people. I was actually at one of my friends from my year, is a year older than me, just had his 40th birthday, Zeke Vince, and so got to go to that, and it was fun to see some McDonogh people still there. So I think the bonds are just incredible. It prepares you really well. You just learn from an early age kind of how to network and how to be willing to work hard, I guess.
Are there any like maybe like lessons that McDonogh taught you that help you like find your passion here? Because it seems like there's a pretty long path to make it to Carenware, and anything that from McDonogh maybe helped guide you.
Yeah, I think a couple things. One, at McDonogh, like everyone is used to doing very well in life. Like everyone around you is super accomplished. Classes, like I definitely did very well grade-wise, and so it prepared me to, like my definition of failure, I realized is probably not the same as what most people think is failure. And so it kind of lets you be even-keeled a bit, which I think helps a lot with a startup where there's 9 billion things that go right, 9 billion things that go wrong each and every day, and it's just maintaining that kind of willingness and understanding that like my head of product likes to say everything happens for a reason, and just understanding that and being okay with it, I think is super important. I think like the willingness to research and the willingness to learn is so important when you're starting a company and continuing to grow it, and I think like the fact that you guys are doing this for your project rather than like playing golf on a golf course, like some of my friends did. I think one of my friends actually went around and followed a sanitation engineer all day, and like saw what it's like to ride in a dump truck, which I was like, really, you want to do that? But Hope goes to that inquisitive nature of McDonogh students and alumni, and I think that is really powerful and really important.
Cool. So what were you involved with at McDonogh?
Yeah, good question. Let's see if I can remember. I can barely remember UVA at this point. I was on the tennis team.
Me too.
Oh, really? Nice.
Very similar.
Are you playing at UVA?
I wish. They just won a national championship.
Yeah,
so it's
no, I know.
not gonna happen.
I'm a very big UVA fan in general. I played club. You should definitely.
I really want to.
Yeah. And UVA club is still better than like 90% of people.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty insane. So played tennis, Model UN. Shit, what else did I do? I got in the library a bunch. A lot of AP classes. I knew was it like Asian Students Union or something? Asian something? The Multicultural Day, I kind of helped run that every year. I was in band until senior year. Yeah, it's depressing that I can't remember.
It's okay.
My resume was great for college though.
Yeah.
So would you say you focused more on academics than the extracurriculars in high school?
So actually, no. I have a photographic memory, so I got away with never studying and getting straight A's. It's great. So I just played tennis a lot. So I would play like probably 3 to 4 hours every night.
Cool.
After.
Where did you play?
So at the time, I was coached by Rob Hubbard, who I think left Baltimore altogether. So he trained at Bear Hills, then he got in a fight with Bear Hills, and then he moved to Barron Parkway,
Okay.
got in a fight with them, and then he moved somewhere else.
Okay, yeah. I play at what is now Coppermine. They bought Bear Hills, so it's the same facility.
Got it, okay.
Really nice, yeah.
Is Kristen Mesmer your coach?
No, but I know who she is.
She's one of my sister's best friends.
Really?
Or was her?
She's really highly regarded. Like everyone else with her, pretty much.
Yeah.
She's awesome. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
That's super funny.
Yeah.
So cool. So at UVA, you did commerce school, so you knew you wanted to be in business.
Yeah.
What about the Spanish? Like, you have like a multicultural interest.
Yeah, so Spanish was, so McDonogh had done, one of the good things about McDonogh is forcing you to do a foreign language and just trying to like learn a little more culture, etc. And so at McDonogh I did the exchange trip to Spain for 2 weeks. And then at UVA I kept taking Spanish classes every semester. And then I realized my third year, if I took 2 extra classes fourth year, I would have a major in it, so I was like, might as well. So I can't say that it was planned, it was more just like I wanted to keep up with Spanish. Now, sadly, I only really use it with my doorman, but still good. I think I was actually really annoyed that UVA had liberal arts first and second year because I just wanted to do business. But it ended up being probably one of the best things ever because it just forced you to take all sorts of cool classes. Like I took history of the Roman Empire, and now I'm actually going to Italy this weekend. So it'll be fun to like get to see all that in reality. And then first year I took like Calc 3 and like all these ridiculously difficult classes. Got my first C ever and like thought the world was ending.
Were you not studying still? Or were you studying?
Yeah, I was not studying. And like, you go from an environment where you're getting 8 hours of sleep to an environment where you're partying a lot and sleeping like 3 to 4 hours a night. And it's just going to not do as well. My GPA jumped a point in between first and second semester because I learned how to deal with being in college second semester, whereas first semester I did not know what I was doing.
So apart from, I guess, that kind of adjustment in the first semester, do you think McDonogh prepared you well for UVA?
I think it did. I think the part, and I would warn you in particular about this, not because you look like this, but I think at McDonogh, you assume you're the top of the top, right? Like we're at an amazing private school with unbelievable access for education. You get to college, and like especially UVA is a quote unquote state school, and so you get there and you're like, oh, well, I'm smarter than everyone here. And I think you get humbled very quickly, and you learn very quickly that you're in fact not. And that is alarming, but also fun. Like, I never want to be the smartest person in the room. Like, as a CEO now, I always want to hire people that are way better than me in whatever area that they are. And if they're not, then honestly, I probably don't want them here as an employee. And I think that that's like a really important lesson that I think at McDonogh we all got spoiled because we were around all the best at everything. And I mean, like, we would joke, even the people that were there because they knew someone or they donated a ton of money or whatever are probably like, you know, a B- student, right? Like, which is still really freaking good. And so hopefully none of you are like D students or whatever. This is gonna get real awkward real fast. But no, like, I think everyone is really, really impressive, and it makes you also want to be in that kind of an environment. So in college, I really, like, when I would kind of push to meet more alumni, to talk to them. I've actually gotten to know a couple of McDonogh alumni now that are really high up in their fields. The COO of MedStar Hospitals, for example, is a McDonogh guy. So I've gotten to know him. And so, like, that kind of stuff is really cool.
Cool. So remind us, where did you go right after McIntyre?
So right after McIntyre, I went to Kearney. It's a strategy consulting firm.
Okay. And you wanted to, that was just because of your business interest?
So they had pitched me on, you're a 22-year-old that gets to tell Fortune 500 CEOs what to do. It sounded really cool. And so you'll notice, like, I've never lost the ego, I guess, that I got at McDonogh. No, I'm kidding. The getting to just work and do different types of projects, like at maximum, I was at one client for 3 months. And so it's a lot of high burn projects where you're just learning a lot and seeing all sorts of different industries and stuff.
Would you recommend that path for someone, like feet on the ground very quickly, just like seeing a lot right after undergrad?
Yeah, I think these days everyone wants to be their own boss at all times, and I mean, I'm just as guilty, right? Because I did quit my job and start one so I could be the boss. But I think it's super important to honestly get your tail handed to you for a few years and like get worked and just trained. And I think banking, consulting, like those types of professions, agencies, like those professions are very difficult, but they help prepare you and train you really well.
So I guess shifting gears a tiny bit, kind of a startup business is the dream, I think, for a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of probably McDonogh students too. Can you take us through, I guess, how you got to where you are with Caringware, how it started? I mean, you mentioned having family in the hospital, but how it got to where it is now, and then just, I guess, some advice too for somebody looking like a young startup business, if they have an idea or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's never giving up for sure. I mean, there's been a lot of highs, a lot of lows. We've had amazing employees, we've had terrible employees. Like, being able to kind of keep the momentum has been important, and then like not taking no as an answer. Normally when you're in early stage startup, people aren't necessarily wanting to work with you over someone else, and just being very persistent. I think even UVA was one of our first clients, and it took me probably 1.5 years to get them to buy. And it was finally might be like, okay, well, I'm getting orders from other hospitals. Are you guys serious or not about doing this? And like being willing to ask people to make a decision, I think helped a lot and was super important as well. In terms of other things, it's you gotta learn to not like let it take over your life, right? Like, so running a company, it is your life. My family's super involved, and but at the same time, like, your brain can't function if you're only thinking about that 24/7, and that's probably taken me 7 or 8 years to do. But now, and look, we're in a much better spot now where I'm not worried about shutting down every second like I was probably in year 1 and 2. And so I can be able to do that, but that's something that we've definitely, like, I've had to learn over the years.
Okay. Cool. Can you discuss the work-life balance being in a startup more and having a family, like how you dealt with that?
Yeah, so work-life balance is pretty non-existent in the early days. I don't know, I mean, I think it varies based on who you are. Like I'm pretty bad, like I'm always plugged in, right? Like everyone on my team jokes whenever I'm on vacation, I'm still gonna probably reply to emails or whatever. From my perspective, it's like I'm replying to what I want to and I'm just punting on whatever I don't. And for me, that's still a vacation. I grew up with, my mom's an anesthesiologist, but my dad was in business. And so whenever we go anywhere, he would check his email for like 2-3 hours a day and like work a little while on vacay. So like I'm used to that. And so for me, that's still a vacation. I think like making time for friends, making time for others around you, I think is super important. And the last piece is like going to startup networking events and things like that. Like yesterday, and I hate networking events, and I went yesterday to Toolable in the evening, which was, I was just like, man, this sucks. But like you just have to do that to help grow your business, and it's definitely worth it as much as I didn't want to do it at the time.
Could you describe maybe like the biggest challenge you faced in like carrying as a whole, or just like how you kind of addressed some of those problems?
Yeah, I guess so. In the middle of, at the beginning of COVID, no one was buying any of our normal products just because hospitals weren't spending jack anymore. I decided that I felt that we should not worry about profit, but rather worry about helping our long-term customers who are in hospitals and get PPE. So started one weekend, emailed 200 CEOs and probably got like 150 replies, which is very abnormal. Normally you email 200 and you're lucky to get one, like you celebrate if you get one reply. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And ended up hitting our numbers for the year in one weekend. And was just like, wow, this, like by doing good, we're actually doing well for the company as well. Which was pretty amazing. And being able to do that, honestly, just transformed the company in a good way. Like we grew 100 times. Now we're named the 4th fastest growing company in America by the Financial Times. So like a lot of positive has come out of my just saying, forget about work, making money. Like what else are we going to do right now? We might as well help these people, and we have the relationships, we have the products. Why don't we make them to help try and protect the world?
Super cool. Super cool. So do you think that kind of emphasis on service was something that was like brought up from McDonogh or transferred from McDonogh?
Yeah, it's a good point. I did a lot of volunteering at McDonogh, and I think that it's definitely something that has stayed super important. At UVA, I did a lot of volunteering. I was also an RA and stuff like that. And then I've continued volunteering while here in New York. And we as a company actually do at least 10% of our profit goes back to nonprofits, and that's been something that's super important for us from day one. Is hey, if I wanted to do this, like I wanted to make a true difference in the world, and not just for the community that we were trying to serve. And so it's something that every single employee here is super ingrained in and super excited about as well.
That's cool. How has your, if we shift gears a tiny bit,
Yeah.
how has your character and personality changed from, UVA graduation or McDonogh graduation until now?
Yeah. At McDonogh, I was super quiet, very shy. I think I was friends with a lot of people, but didn't necessarily, I did not go out as much and things like that. UVA, I definitely opened up a lot more, started becoming much more social. Business school was even worse. Like I think I went out the night before a final, which I would have never done at McDonogh. Or I was actually telling people that I never went to Preakness while in high school because it was always, at least for us, it was finals weekend. And so I didn't study except for right before finals, and so I was cramming a semester's worth of studying at that time, or terms worth, I guess, it's trimesters. So I think just more relaxed in general, and more like wanting to experience life probably a bit more. and just willing to kind of take chances maybe that before I was probably more conservative about.
What caused that change over the course of your life?
That's a good question. I think probably just seeing that, like, there were no negative repercussions. Like, you never regret doing something or meeting people or whatever. I think in business school, the first 21 nights I went out, which was absurd, like very unhealthy. But I made bonds in those first 21 nights that I still have today. And I think that is, like, my only regret was like, yeah, I wish I had slept a little more, but totally worth sacrificing that to make the bonds that I have. A few years ago, I was in Asia on a trip when I worked at Goldman, and texted or Facebook message. You guys probably don't even use Facebook, but like Facebook message someone from my class being like, "Hey, I'm gonna be in Hong Kong tomorrow. Love to see you if you're around." And she ended up getting 40 of our classmates together, and we all hung out. And like that was cool, right? Like I'm there for a work trip. I have 12 hours, and now all of a sudden I'm seeing 40 classmates I haven't seen in 2 years. And it's just those bonds that you create last a lifetime, and I think that's been really cool.
You mentioned, going out and making those bonds and networking, and the CEO of MedStar as well, being a McDonogh guy. Are there like other specific maybe McDonogh connections or the McDonogh community connections that you've made in business or in your professional life that have served you well that you can speak to or share?
Yeah, so like one of my friends is two classes below me. McDonogh runs a men's shirt company called Stamp that you can choose your own size. They have, I think, 70. Well, that was before. I don't even know how many sizes they have, but they have a lot. And he and I have been like in the thick of things together, and so it's been cool to be able to talk shop with each other a lot, and like trade stories, give each other advice, things like that. My friend Zeke at some point will start his own thing, so it'll be cool to see that. Another friend, Kenny, now works for T. Rowe Price, and so bothering him to get him to invest in us. And like, it's just cool to see how all of us have gone different ways, but can actually help each other professionally as well. I probably haven't done as good of a job of taking advantage of the McDonogh alumni database. I've actually done a much better job with UVA, and even Chicago Booth. But yeah, with McDonogh, I haven't done as good of a job. But I did notice when I was interviewing for jobs at UVA for full time, like every time I met someone from Baltimore or even the Mid-Atlantic, everyone knew who McDonogh was, and it kind of helped me get to the next round every single time. And I think that was super powerful and really good. It's awesome.
And then coming out of college, did you know that you wanted to work in New York, or because I know you talked about that working in and not wanting to come back?
Yeah, I actually never really loved New York, to be honest. I interviewed for a couple jobs in Atlanta. I always thought I wanted to live in DC, Bethesda area. Families in Baltimore, like just easier to get to them, etc. Just never worked out job-wise, I guess. Like when I took Kearney, everyone I talked to was like, you want to be at one of the motherships, so you want to be either New York or Chicago, just for a bigger office to get more exposure. Banking, I actually only interviewed with 2 investment banks. One was in LA, one was here. And everyone's comment was for Goldman, at the least for the group I was in, the tech media telecom group, you wanted to be either here or San Fran. And while I like visiting San Fran, I didn't really want to live there. And so kind of just ended here. Now, from a recruiting talent perspective, it makes a lot of sense to be based here.
So what does the future of CareWare look like, and do you have any other personal aspirations or objectives, like in the next, 1, 5, or 10 years?
Yeah, totally. We would love to be kind of the main provider of what you're wearing in and out of the hospital, whether you're a patient or a clinician, forever, right? Like, I think a lot of founders build a company with the goal of selling. I do not. I want to be running the company for the next 30 plus years. love to go public at some point. Obviously, love to have a building rather than just one office. I think from a professional standpoint, want to be able to help all 7 billion plus people in the world.
Why do you want to not sell a business and hold on to it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, when you think about what else are you going to do afterwards, I get bored easily. Like, I don't know, there's nothing else that I want to do more than be able to run this company. And like, selfishly, we get to like talk to customers and just hear about what we did for them. And I think that that's really amazing. And like, we just, some celebrities wearing Clay Scherer, the home edit lady, who I'm guessing none of you three have heard of, but like she has 6 million plus Instagram followers. And last week she posted wearing one of these hoodies. And so she's getting cancer, and these have zippers that open up, so it opens up in the chest and you can get access to the chest while still wearing clothing. So she posted it on Instagram, and so I've been getting blown up all weekend from friends who are like, holy shit, is that you guys? Like, that's so cool. And I'm like, yeah, I really wish you had tagged us. But I think like that's pretty amazing when you get to see people wearing our products and saying how completely life altering it is.
Cool. And did a lot of your friends from like McIntyre, like, or who wanted to be entrepreneurs, like try to go straight into like the startup world, or did most of them take the path of like? No,
I think because I'm so old. In 05, it was very rare. Like Alexis Ohanian's probably the only guy from my class that he started Reddit.
He went to UVA.
Yeah, he was UVA 05 comm school. He was probably the only one in our class actually that did. Everyone else, for the most part, took very traditional jobs. I think entrepreneurship is probably more of like a 5-year thing, where people have started to do it. Honestly, and I'm like more old school given my career trajectory. I'm not sure going to start a company immediately out of college is the right thing, just because you just haven't learned enough in terms of like what pitfalls there are. Like anytime you get some bad news, you're probably gonna freak out type of deal, things like that.
Got it. That's cool.
So I guess just more of like a personal question. You had like a lot of like, sounds like a lot of fun, a lot of like social aspects of college.
Mm-hmm.
When you go out of college and into the kind of the workforce,
Yeah.
how much is that balance between like having fun versus getting your work done change?
Yeah, I mean, I think even in college, I was always a pretty serious student, so like I had fun, but I definitely worked. Like if I had a big test or something, I wasn't going out. I think now it's definitely, you probably lean even more towards staying in and making sure you get stuff done, or like I'm flying to Italy on Saturday, I'm probably not going to go out on Friday, and when I was in business school 10 years ago, I was probably going out Friday before a trip on Saturday. So like things like that, you just try and get smarter about travel and just life in general. I think like there's parts like that, but there's also parts that have probably gone the other way, where like, from a work perspective, I've got a lot to do, but it's like, hey, the Orioles are in town. How often are they in town? Someone's invited me to a suite. Like, I'm not gonna turn that down and start going to that. What does that mean? It probably means that I'm going to be plugged in when I get back somewhat as well, type of deal.
Circling back real quick about your Instagram thing, actually, I'm pretty interested in like the marketing aspect, especially as like a younger company.
Yeah.
Like how important is like social media for you all?
Super important. So we have someone whose full-time job is community management, and she oversees all of our social and is like focused on that day in and day out.
That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, we're also a company that's trying to build a community, so for us, social is going to be a lot more important than like a software company that no one needs to hear about.
It's a really powerful tool, I feel like.
Yeah, totally.
Let's see where we are. Okay, we have like I guess like 10 more minutes.
Okay.
And we only have 40 minutes of video.
Yeah.
Like it'll just shut off. We learned that hard way earlier today. Actually, we talked to David Rothschild. If you know him.
No.
Okay. And we talked to Ian Slater too. I don't know if you met him either. both really cool. This has been also been great. Is there any ideas for last final questions?
I guess we can kind of move on to the advice section.
Sure.
So, I guess what advice would you give to maybe yourself or other people, like McDonogh students that are graduating, coming out of high school, and just kind of going into the next phase of life?
Yeah. I think advice number one is always be prepared. I think always kind of be wanting to show that you can add value from day one. So like the best advice I got as a 22-year-old analyst was, hey, you know, when you go into a meeting, everyone wants to know that there's a role for you, so always volunteer to do whatever it takes. So like, I hate taking notes. I have photographic memory, so notes don't really do anything for me. But I would still take notes for the team every single meeting. And like, I became known as the guy that would make sure the team was fed. So I would order food for every meal, and consulting everything's expense. So you're eating together all the time. A lot of projects you're just eating at the office late night. So I would make sure that I would order lunch, I would order dinner. Obviously it's a lot easier now with like Seamless, Uber Eats, all that, but back then I would go pick it up if we had to, things like that, like be willing to do the dirty work, I guess, that no one wants to do, because then people are willing to give you opportunities to do everything else. I think second is really strive for perfection whenever you can. So I think a lot of people kind of are lackadaisical about stuff. And like as a CEO, if I see someone that's not taking something seriously, I'm less likely to bring them into a really important meeting to let them have a role and be a part of it. But if they're like, you know, super prepared, everything they're presenting to me is in like tip-top shape, no spelling mistakes, no grammar mistakes, things like that, then I'm willing to give them more and more, like a longer leash and more opportunities. And I think that people kind of are like, oh, well, you know, when it matters, I'll care and I'll put in the effort. And that doesn't resonate well whatsoever. And then I think the last thing is like never give up, right? Like I've been doing this for 8 years. We didn't really start getting super successful until 6 years in. And then with COVID, it kind of just like happened in like right people, right place, right time. And now we're on a completely different trajectory. And it's because I never gave up. And it's a lot of people would have said, man, this is taking way too long. I could be making way more money somewhere else, but this is what my passion was, and I kind of wanted to keep doing it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think we covered a lot of ground, got some really good advice.
Totally.
Always some good clips.
Yeah.
We'll be sure to send you the final product.
Perfect.
That's all said and
Congrats,
done.
guys.
So yeah,